Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what happened? The Iraqi people has suffered much in recent history, much more than most other peoples in the world. A cruel regime, 3 wars within 23 years, 13 years of sanctions, and finally the occupation and the collapse of security and stability. These events caused altogether hundreds of thousands of victims and infected the living conditions of millions. Wars and sanctions are also a serious enemy of culture and caused a great damage to the heritage of Iraq, which is, regarding to the length of its history, the number of ancient sites and the richness of its remainings, outstanding among the world's cultural heritage. But the destruction that happened during and after the latest war in spring 2003 can be compared only to very few events in the thousands of years of long history in the country, and it is still ongoing. I will review what has happened, and I will start with the situation that I found in Iraq when I visited the country again in April 2003, few days after the fall of Baghdad, when the looting and burning of all the infrastructure, including the cultural institutions, was still ongoing. University of Baghdad, College of Arts, Central Library. This damage is not caused by military attacks, but it was a result of the burning of 3 or 4 days, which was imposed on the building after the looting. Then the roof collapsed and the building is in the situation like you see it now here. A burnt library. This is or was the library of the German department of the university in the same area. The colleagues have collected more than 15,000 books in 50 or 60 years. You can imagine what that means for such a country. The only place in Iraq the German language, culture, and literature is transmitted, and not a single page could be used. The colleague who guided me around here in the library, he made a sarcastic comment: a burnt library is very photogene. Another part of that library. These are the conditions how the country had to restart again. You can imagine what it means if all the infrastructure of state departments, of universities, of museums, if everything is damaged to such an extent, what that means to start to come back to normal state of life. What has not been looted and damaged and burned has been treated in the way you see it. The index cards of the main library, they have not been burnt but scattered around all over the floors. To reorganize that means the work of Sisyphus. This was the safe of the dean in the Faculty of Arts of the university. It was broken, and what the looters found usable, they took it away, and finally the building was burnt as well. One of the ministries, I chose some slides showing the cultural institution of the university, but in the same way, more or less all of the ministries, the state departments, all what is needed to run a state, a modern state, was looted and burned in the similar way. I tended to go nearer to this building because the looting was still going on when I was in Baghdad, but my friends who guided me around, they prohibited this because the looters were armed and the life of a man didn't mean much in that time, so I took this picture from the car. This is a storehouse. Again, the collapse is not the result of military attacks, but of the burning that affected the building for 3 or 4 days and that finally it collapsed. A storehouse where the people used to take their food supply and staff supply for their daily needs. In Mansour, a famous area. Yeah, the Iraq Museum, and the fate of the Iraq Museum was shocking the international community. The looters did the same job as I explained it to the university, but the worst case did not take place. The burning of the museum, which was a very great threat, did not take place. The archives, 500,000 objects, the looters, they did steal a lot of its collections, but the complete damage by burning could be avoided. Till now, thousands of objects are still missing. They have been stolen. 10,000 of objects are damaged or destroyed, and the restoration will take a very long time. But at least here in the museum, the support of the international community was ready, and they did a good contribution to give support to the Iraqi colleagues to make the museum function again. But for the majority of the State Department's university, a similar support is still lacking. After these impressions of libraries reduced to ashes, I will shift to the excavation, to the ancient sites. The disastrous and enormous extent of the destruction of this cultural heritage is much worse in the countryside. I will show you some samples of 4 major Sumerian famous cities. In Sumer, where writing was invented, where the cradle of civilization, where the first and outstanding civilization was developed, how it is looking now after the looting and the illegal digging. I will present it in stages with 3 phases. The situation that was normal up to 1999, when the Iraqi international excavation teams tried to recover the remainings of the ancient Sumerian civilization. Then I will show you the looting and the illegal excavation that devastated a great extent of these sites during the sanctions period. And finally, what the actual situation when these robbery and illegal diggings amounted to an industrial scale of destruction during the past 20 months. The majority of destruction is actual. It is not, don't speak about remote history, we speak about the time being. For those among the auditory who are not familiar with Iraqi ancient sites, I will show you some slides to demonstrate the size of the ancient cities that the Sumerians have left, and about the task that normal excavators have to have in front of them when they start excavating here. This is Nippur. Nippur was the center of the intellectual life of the Sumerians. It was the academy, it was the Sumerian spirit of its culture. It was based in Nippur. This is the main temple, coming nearer, and like this, the ancient sites have survived for many thousands of years. From the temple tower, I made this slide here. In this area, this is a scribal area. We can call it an academy after the Sumerians lost the Sumerian area decayed 4,000 years ago. The Babylonians collected all that they knew about Sumerian literature, and the collecting, copying, writing, compiling of the Sumerian literature was taken in these rooms. The American excavations run from the Oriental Institute in Chicago did the main job in excavating these scribal areas, and more or less 90% about what we know about literature and the spiritual world of Sumerians is based on the findings that were recovered in this area. Now another famous site, Uruk, which is connected to everybody with King Gilgamesh, the famous hero who lived about 5,000 years ago. Again, we have very many impressive remainings of the past. The temple tower from on the top, you can imagine what an enormous size this city had in the past. 5,000 years ago, it was about 6 square kilometers. And when you compare what kind of settlements in the rest of the world are known from this period, it is 100 times than anything else 5,000 years ago. Nippur has suffered didn't suffer much from the illegal excavation. It is nearby a sound and it could be protected to some size. In Uruk, the local tribe who worked together with the German excavators for decades, they felt responsible for to provide some kind of protection. So Uruk is one of the places that have not been damaged, but other places suffered a fate that I will show you now in the next minutes, which is uncomparable. Such a destruction didn't take place for thousands of years. This is Adab. Adab is one of the most important Sumerian cities, and it covers square kilometers. It hasn't only superficially been excavated. There was a campaign just 100 years ago, but only one season, and they were not able just to get an idea of the structure of this place. And one of my colleagues who wanted to start excavations in Adab in the 19th, the license for the site was offered to him. When he went to the site and saw it, at square kilometers where you do not know where to start and how to proceed, he quit. He chose another site which was more practical for excavations. The Iraqi colleagues, they started some excavations in few years ago, but they could only cover some
for one season.
Only one season. So one of the most important sites where history is on every square centimeter is not discovered by scientific excavations. But Adab is gone. It fell in the hands of the looters, and the results you will see immediately. You can imagine the size of ancient sounds. It's not small places. It's immense. You need hours to go around, even to get an idea to what extent the remainings of the ancient civilizations are still existing. And immediately below the surface, you find architecture, you find temples, you find palaces, you find houses, you find libraries, monuments, statues, cylinder seals, inscriptions. Everything is still existing. Once these cities were given up 4,000 years ago, they lost the importance for Mesopotamia. The center of politics was shifted to the north, to Babylon and other places. These cities have left untouched. So if a scientific controlled excavation is starting in these places, they immediately find what was untouched, and only the natural forces, they sealed the surface, but once you start excavations, plenty of rich remainings come out. All this is Adab. But it was. The final place is Isin. Isin was the center of Mesopotamian culture for 200 years, starting from 4,000 years ago until about 3,800 years back from now. And I want to show you three phases, how the German excavators from the University of Munich found the site and they conducted their excavations, and how it is now. immediately below the surface you find this architecture. It is the main area, the temple area, and great buildings came out. And carefully, everything is brushed and documented, photographed, because the information is not only in artifacts, it is the information altogether, architecture, skeletons, inscriptions, and the site, and the structure of the buildings. All these informations together are like a book, and modern excavators start to read this book. They collect all the single informations, and they reconstruct, as a result of an analysis, how the people thousands of years lived and what was their contribution like to the world heritage. The progress is slow. Modern excavations need time. As a result of an excavation that can be financed by scientific institutions in Germany, an area more or less comparable to the size of this hall can be excavated properly during one season. And if you imagine that Isin has square kilometers, and Isin is only one side of many sites that have many square kilometers, so far only 1% of the available information is accessible to our modern knowledge, and the rest is or was still waiting to be recovered. Here in the temple area, staircase was recovered, which was never in use, so it was brand new. 3,800 years when they constructed the staircase, it was not used, it was left, and like a new staircase that was built a week ago, it came to the surface and was documented by the German colleagues there. And keep this area in mind, you will immediately see how it is looking now. Yeah, this was the beginning of excavations when I had to start with minor work, brushing a skeleton until the inscriptions. So I was responsible for deciphering of the epigraphist for the inscriptions. They take some time to come out, so I joined the normal work there. And at the end of the campaign, the construction, like this one here, this is a cellar of one of the major gods worshipped in Isin. So this is a result in one area of 2 months of excavations. Isin 10 years later. Muss ich jetzt was? Not only wars, also modern technology is an enemy of culture if it is not functioning. But some seconds of patience. I did some visits to Isin in the 90s, and it was untouched. No illegal excavations, no digging, no robbery, nothing. The site was in the same shape as we had left it in '89 before the Kuwait War. And so I was very satisfied. Isin is far apart from any settled place. The next city is 40 kilometers apart. So it is very far apart from each and everything. And it was like the thousands of years ago. It was there till the end of the 90s. But then I came again to this place in January 2003, 2 months before the recent war. And to make it clear, the damage, the destruction of the world's heritage in Iraq is not only a matter of the last year, it also, this history began during the sanctions period. I will explain it later. This is the same area the main temple, and if you compare the nice results of the controlled excavations, what they carefully worked out from the architecture, collecting all the findings, is now a lunar surface. And it's me here, I was shocked when I entered the place, and my first idea was they brought me to a wrong place. They mistook the road, but it became very apparent that it was Izin. Oh yeah, no. Izin became a lunar surface. Dozens of robbers' holes were spread all over the central area. I counted up between 30 and 40 of these holes, and some pictures which show details. It was very dangerous to go around because there was no fence, no protection, nothing. And it looks that they used some well-developed technique to go down. Some of the holes are down 4, 6, maybe some even meters, maybe some of them even deeper. The illegal excavators, they went down with deep rubber holes, and then they built tunnels because they could not go anywhere down. Otherwise, all the structure would have been collapsed. So they made tunnels to enter deep into the site. Here you can follow thousands of meters from the surface down to the beginning of the settlement of this area. And some more details, the structure. Any controlled scientific excavation will be very difficult or impossible. What excavators try to find out the structure of the architecture, the size of the rooms, the exact finding place of the remainings, which is essential to make a proper analysis of the purpose, the function of an institution there. This is no longer possible. This is the rest of the excavation house, which was left as it was in 1999, and also everything that could be used here, doors, windows, even bricks, they have been looted and used from the peasants in the neighborhood. These pictures in January 2003 about the destruction of Izin. The destruction covered only the central area, I guess about 200 times 200 meters. A year later, this destruction covered all over Izin, square kilometers. I counted up to 40 rubber holes. Now you have hundreds, if not thousands. This is a picture done by helicopter in the beginning of this year. It was the picture was made by John Russell, who was working there for a couple of months in Iraq, and since this area was very dangerous, it was impossible to go there overland, but from the helicopter you get a very good impression about the progress. The robbery, the looting, the illegal excavation became an industry in the last 20 months. The damage that has been done to the ancient sites was severe during the sanctions period, the period between 1991, 1992 and 2003. But there was a government, and the Antiquities Department tried hard to stop it. They started controlled excavations in the area. They posted guards. They negotiated with the local people there, with the tribes, to employ them as guards, to pay them salary, and so they could stop or reduce the illegal excavations to a very good extent. Of course, in Izin you find that they could not stop it completely, but at least there was a severe activity to stop it. But now, in the past 20 months, there has been no protection to all these sites. And some details all over the site. Square kilometers is now in this shape. How to get any serious results there from scientific excavations? You don't know what to do. Everything is destroyed. And the people are not scared. Some of my colleagues, when he went around with a helicopter flight, in some sites there were hundreds of people, and they were greeting to the helicopter because there was no state, no government, no force prohibiting them. If you ask the occupation armies, they don't feel responsible. They are engaged with other things. Culture is not their concern, it's not their order, so they left it open to everybody who was greedy to take artifacts out of the soil. And they feel safe. They were greeting, it was their soil, nobody stopped them. And the disaster, you can see it here. Some more details. And then once such a hole, sometimes several meters deep, has been digged. The rain of the winter season is coming, the walls collapse, and they bury again the architecture and what could have been found in the place. So the problem, the disastrous destruction of the world's heritage in Iraq is not a problem that is brand new, 20 months old. It started in the 90s. But the extent which this destruction has reached now is unprecedented. And we face nowadays, while we are we live in the same time, and we have access to all the international informations, this has taken place. Antiquities pass from the illegal excavators to local dealers and smugglers, many of them heavily armed, and through intermediaries in the neighboring countries to private collectors and dealers in the United States, in Japan and Europe. Antiquities are currently very much in demand, and this unprecedented growth in the market has attracted many groups and individuals engaged in this illegal but highly profitable business. And the profits are comparable only to the trade in drugs, arms and slaves. What can be done? I showed you the example of Izin in the various stages, but comparable to Izin are many sites in the south. Iraq has about 10,000 historical sites that are registered, but the calculation is up to 100,000 of altogether what the history of thousands of years starting from Sumerians have left. So how to protect such a soil which is altogether a single archaeological site? What can be done? One demand is approaching the international community. Considering that demand governs supply, the point is to get the illegal market under control. right down to instituting a general ban on trading excavated objects, analogously to the trade in drugs and slaves, and the ban implemented on the trade in ivory to protect the elephant, and it worked well. Consequently, there is a need for stricter laws which include sanctions for dealers involved in transactions with illegal antiquities. It is also important to create an awareness among buyers and dealers. With the dealers, they are dealing in illegal artifacts and antiquities, that it is not a pardonable offense, but it is constructing completely or almost completely what has left over for thousands of years and what would be waiting in principle to be recovered by the international society to get a proper understanding from the beginnings and the way that the development in civilization took place. The second demand is to our colleagues in Iraq who have the work of Sisyphus to stop these kind of destructions, and now we have the unique chance to get that our colleague Dr. Burhan Shakir is here, Director General responsible for excavations, and I will leave the floor to him that he can explain how the Iraqi colleagues try to match this challenge and to get control and to stop what is one of the worst destructions that culture of any nation in the world has ever faced in all periods of history. Thank you very much.